Good morning, digital designers. Mr. Roper's here with a quick tip on how you can make realistic looking cloth in Blender. This is a skill that we're going to use a lot in our next project, so I want to have you practice it with a very quick demo today. So I've got my basic scene here. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of the light and the camera and just leave my cube here for the moment. And then I need a couple of different objects. I'm going to make my cloth out of a plane. So let's do Shift-A, add a plane. And we're going to turn on our little gizmo here and lift this plane up above our cube. Let's also scale it out quite a bit. So this is almost like a bed sheet. It's really large. And right now, if I tab into edit mode, you can see that this is just one large face. And when you're making cloth, you need a lot more geometry than that. That means we're going to have to split this plane into a bunch of tiny little pieces that can fold like real fabric does. Okay, so to do that, you just tab into edit mode and then right click the object and hit subdivide. And when you press subdivide, you'll get a little menu down here at the bottom corner of your screen where you can choose the number of cuts. I'm going to put quite a few cuts on here. I'm going to add 50 actually, and then press enter. And what you'll see is it split my plane 50 lines in each direction. So now it's got a lot more geometry that can bend and wiggle and move like real fabric. So now that I've done that, I'm going to tab back into object mode. And I'm going to come over to my little wrench here to add some modifiers to it. And there's two modifiers that we need to include. The first one is called collision. This basically means that when this object hits something else, it's going to act like it's really there. It won't pass through it like objects normally do in Blender. It's actually going to stop because it's got some physical boundaries to it. The other thing I need to add to it is the cloth modifier, and this is going to change it into a piece of cloth. And you can see that it tells you that the cloth settings are inside the physics tab. The physics tab is this little button right below the wrench. This button right here below the wrench that looks like a little atom symbol. So we're going to click this. We're working on cloth right now, and we want to add some quality steps just to make it look a little bit smoother. So I'm going to push this up to 12. And that's really all I need to do. This is now going to be treated like cloth when we let go of it and we let it drop. Okay. Now we're also going to be dropping our cloth onto another object, this cube right here. So what I'm going to do is just scale this up a little bit. And I want to make sure that this cube also has the collision modifier on it so that the fabric and the cube hit each other. Okay. If they both don't have collision on, the fabric will pass right through it. All right, so cube has collision, cloth has collision and cloth. Now we're ready to see how this works. And anytime you're making cloth in Blender, you're going to need to pull up this little screen at the bottom. Make sure that this little doohickey over here is set to the timeline. And watch what happens. When we hit our space bar, that cloth is going to drop and wrap around that cube just like real fabric would. Now your job is to kind of watch for when it's hanging exactly the way you want it to, and then hit spacebar one more time to freeze the animation. This is pretty cool. When you play this back and forth, it's actually animating in real time. So you can see how your cloth works as it drops. And you want to look for a moment when it's hanging just the way that you want it to. Okay, that looks super. I like the way that it's kind of folding over the edges. So last step, I'm going to right click this and I'm going to convert it to a mesh. It's no longer going to be animated. It is now a physical object frozen in time in that fold. And then I can right click it and shade it auto smooth. And now I've got some really cool fabric in Blender. That's all for this one. Check out my next tutorial on how to make pillows the same way.